Some funeral home directors in Kentucky say there are problems within the walls of UK Hospital.
A Facebook post led to several of our viewers sounding off about how long it took the hospital to release their loved ones' bodies, ranging from hours to days.
Sophia Millar sat down with Lisa Reed, who says what happened after her mother's death still haunts her. Details in this LEX 18 Investigates.
Her name was Frances Smith.
Lisa Reed describes her mom as someone who was always cracking jokes, someone full of life and love.
She was my best friend.
Frances Smith died of a heart attack in the ICU of UK Hospital in January 2019. Reed said losing her mom was devastating, but only the beginning of her pain.
I didn't want to leave her. I had a bad feeling, I'm going to be honest with you, before I left.
But she did. The family filled out paperwork, nurses asked what arrangements to make, and Reed went home to wait for Northcutt & Son Funeral Home to call. She says she waited for days.
When 2 days rolled around, I said, something's not right. And that's when I started making the phone calls. And sure enough, I was right. Something was wrong. They had her in the morgue.
John Northcutt answered the funeral parlor's phone. But this was the first he was hearing about Frances Smith's death.
We had not received a phone call.
Northcutt says UK's Department of Decedent Affairs never called him to tell him there was someone's mom in the morgue and that he needed to come get her. And at that point, Reed was getting nervous.
How do I know they have the right woman without looking?
She asked me, she said, can I ride with you? Is it possible for me to ride with you in the hearse to the hospital to make the removal? And I told her, I said, yes, if you would like to ride with us to the hospital, you're more than welcome.
Security led them into the morgue, into a body bag.
She asked me, she said, is it possible if I can go ahead and view my mother? And I said, sure, you're welcome to view her, but I don't know what condition she will be in, but that's your choice.
After 2 days, Reed says her mom's body started decomposing.
That's an image that I will never get out of my mind. That has caused me a lot of heartache. Yes, I did put myself in that position to go down there and get her. And I brought my mother home. But I shouldn't have had to have. They should have done their job. I felt like they just pushed her to the side and forget about her.
Reed says even a year later, the day haunts her.
She appreciated me letting her ride down with her, but it was a very bad moment in her life.
A moment set in motion by a missing phone call, something John Northcutt says he deals with all the time when UK Hospital is involved.
They do excellent care, caring for the living, but it seems like when they pass away that the care stops.
Northcutt says most hospitals will release a body to a funeral home within 2 hours of death under normal circumstances. But he says UK Hospital can take anywhere between 5 hours and several days, if they even call.
This is widespread. This is not isolated. This is statewide. Many, many, many families and funeral homes are experiencing the same problems or the same issues that we are.
On February 17, Northcutt made this Facebook post asking if anyone else had dealt with a list of problems involving the hospital. The post was shared more than 200 times and received 45 comments from families and funeral directors around Kentucky, saying those things were happening to them too.
At UK, they're an excellent facility, but this has been an ongoing problem for years.
LEX 18 turned to UK for answers.
It can be a complex process because keep in mind we're getting some of the more serious cases, some of the more serious illnesses, and so sometimes that process can take a little longer at a place like a big medical center that is dealing with that kind of serious illness sometimes.
Which Northcutt acknowledges. Sometimes there are circumstances that'll delay the release of a body. But Frances Smith died of natural causes, and the hospital didn't need to call her family. They were already in the room.
I had even signed all the paperwork before I left her body. I signed everything for Northcutt to pick her up.
To which Blanton responded.
We're not perfect, and if there are ways we can make that system better, we need to engage in that dialogue and be committed to doing that, and we're going to do that.
Northcutt is meeting with UK Hospital to go over the complaint.
Why has it taken this long? There are several funeral home directors that have said they've been complaining about this for years.
I'm not aware of that. All I'm aware of is the concern that was raised about by the Round County Funeral Home Director and coroner.
Blanton says Northcutt's original Facebook post reached the eyes of a UK senior administrator, which is why he was invited to the upcoming meeting in the first place. But linked underneath that post is a thread of comments where LEX 18 counted 2 additional people who said they'd specifically raised concerns to UK over the years. Plus, LEX 18 called 4 funeral homes to get their insight. They all said the same thing. They've been complaining for years.
What is the root of the problem? Is it an understaffing problem, or why?
I'm not aware of that. I think we need to understand if there is an issue, what that issue is, and work with coroners, funeral home directors, and families to mitigate that and do better.
Northcutt says he's ready to have this conversation with the hospital.
But I'm very optimistic that after the meeting that we can get this problem fixed.
Meanwhile, Reed says she just hopes the problems are fixed so nobody else ever has to go through what she did.
There's no excuse, except for somebody dropped the ball. Somebody didn't do their job. Somebody needs to be held accountable.
An opportunity that could come Friday when UK Hospital and John Northcutt sit down to address the complaints. In Lexington, Sophia Millar, LEX 18 News.